should be good.
Is anybody able to confirm? Texting one of us.
Yeah, it shows it's live on the YouTube site.
Maybe they have the wrong link.
Who's texting, Jen, or who's telling you that?
Maybe they have the wrong link. Yeah, Samantha Campbell.
It's on YouTube. I just confirmed on my phone here. It should be live.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Tom. And quickly, I was able to get to it just by doing a quick search in YouTube search for Montessori Peaks Academy board meeting, and it popped up real quick. So.
I got a family member to confirm it's also up.
Okay.
It's live. We're live.
So yeah, thanks all. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So as a family, we have two kids currently attending MPA. One of which is in the fourth grade, and having seen the impact that not only the Montessori method but also the MPA community has had, the community as a whole has had on them, including their sense of belonging, and their sense of community, emotional resilience, and so many other things. I felt compelled to join the board as a means to sort of give back to a community that has had such a positive impact on my family. That's my why.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Do we nominate now for next month? Anybody want to volunteer to?
Have you gone, Ted? Did you go?
You can put me down for December. I'll do December. That's
okay, fine. I like it.
That works. Perfect. Okay, thanks again, Tom. And then we'll turn over to Robin for the principal report.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Busy time of year, although really I could probably say that every time, but lots of great things going on. With regards to district updates, there has been, as we all know, several board members being replaced. I was sad to see Mary Parker go because she's come to our school twice and she actually helped us push through some of the paperwork that was blocking our renovation over at North. So forever thankful to her for that because I think she really expedited things. In the most recent leadership meeting for Jeffco, it's looking like a 10% reduction across all Jeffco departments. Again, that doesn't affect charters directly, like schools are having to come up, like neighborhood schools come up with who they might need to, what positions they might need to let go. That doesn't affect us, but again, how it will affect us eventually is access to services because there'll be reduced access, but also in future years, our purchase services might go up. The new enterprise resource planning system is in progress. The Accenture is the company that's taking the lead on that implementation. And I don't know if this is a good idea, but I volunteered, and Tim Matlick from Jefferson Academy were the representatives for the charter cohort principals. And so there'll be some meetings I have to go to reviewing the components to make sure it's working for charter schools. For school updates, lots of celebrations, but this may not be as exciting to other people, but our lockdown drill is complete, and that is a big deal. You have to do one a year, and we were really happy to get it done first semester this year. Sometimes we have to delay till second semester. Oh, hold on, something is happening. Okay. let's see, our second grade COGAT testing is complete. Aaron Wallard takes the lead on that testing, and our lower L team and our assistants included, they really did a great job. So that was pretty seamless, especially with the new internet. We were always a little worried because they test over at North, but it ran smoothly. And then really some events like the Veterans Day Assembly that Mr. Tyler ran, amazing job. So if you were able to go, I'm sure you saw as well. It's just such a nice community event to have. And I would have to say the one that's not in here is I went to the middle school cafe today, and it was very busy. They ran out of every single ingredient, but really great to see the middle school kids learning the business model and learning all kinds of things like customer service, inventory supply. So they ran out of eggs. But anyway, just a nice community event. I saw lots of different people there. In the past, I've seen predominantly middle school parents, but I saw a variety of people there. So that was exciting. Staff updates. So Laura, we already had announced that Laura McManus will be retiring. She's been at MPA for a long, long time. She's ready to move on to something new. So we've already posted her job on the Montessori sites, again, trying to be really proactive and finding the best fit possible for the classroom. Welcoming Miss Tanya as the new middle school assistant. She actually came from Miss Gretchen's room was up in Upper L, as you probably know. But she's over there. It's going really well, and she's responsible for having that cafe run well today. We hired Miss Lily Segisman. She replaced Miss Tanya as Miss Gretchen's assistant. She's been someone that had been subbing in our building, and Gretchen had reached out to me and said, asked if Lily was interested, and so she was. So it's really exciting. Abby and Miss Amy's room, it just didn't work out with her commute. It was so long, and she decided to go work someplace closer to home. So we posted that job, and Miss Ann started this week. We did 2 days of onboarding, and today she was in the classroom. What we're really trying to beef up is our onboarding for assistants, because sometimes when they start in the middle of the year, it can be a little rough because you've missed all the beginning of the year, get to know you activities and that type of thing. So we're really trying to improve our onboarding process. With facility, one of the big things, I mean, there hasn't been a lot with facility, but we had the flooding, and we definitely wanted to get some mold testing done to make sure there was nothing. And we had two mold tests from 2 different companies, and both came back saying in acceptable ranges, because every building has some level of mold. And there were no further recommendations beyond general cleaning. And so we will be having Pioneer, our cleaning company, go in over Thanksgiving, do more intense cleaning, especially in the rooms that were affected. The other big thing is we're proceeding with getting the north front entrance lighting fixed. This is something we've been struggling with for a year, trying to figure it out. Where we finally decided we've got to hire an electrician. And so we've already contracted a company, and they will be working on that. It is too dark. It's a safety issue for staff leaving, as well as even middle school information night. When you leave, it's dark. So it's the lights when you first come out of the doorways. They're above in the ceiling, and they just, for whatever reason, have not worked in months. With safety, as you know, the lockdown drill was completed. When you do a lockdown drill with the safety and security team, this is something we reviewed in detail with accountability this week, and we always have a pre-lockdown drill meeting with them to prepare for it, and then they do a post-lockdown drill review, and they'll basically it's not like a report card, but they give you, this is what we saw that you need to fix, and they, first of all, are always very complimentary of our staff and our students. They really do a great job. We have a lot of rule followers in the building, so they really commended our staff and students. And the only thing that came out of that feedback was that 2 internal storage doors were unlocked and should always remain locked. That it was not doors that student classrooms or anything. It's more like a teacher storage closet. And from the safety security team perspective, if they ever had to come into a building to address the situation, they wouldn't want doors open that someone could hide in. So we have already talked to staff about that, making sure that when we use those rooms, we're locking the door behind us. The next one for safety will be, we have our typical monthly fire drills, but we will have an evacuation drill this year in the spring. That's we don't do that every year. You can do a shelter or an evacuation, but you have to do one of them for the year. We really haven't done evacuation in several years, and with the new north building, that changes our procedures. So we'll be doing that in the spring. with regard to enrollment, we discussed this last meeting, you know, our budget, as when Jen talks about budget versus actuals, it was the one we put out last April was for about 420. And we're right now, we're at 410.5 students, and that's where we'll land. We're pretty sure they still haven't given us the final number, but that's going to be the final number. And so you can see the numbers up there. That includes, remember, if you look at the full-time count for that, the full-time box up there, that's 391. Oh, I can barely read it, point something. And then our homeschool comes in at about 20. And so that brings us to the almost the 411. The good thing is, and we discussed this in our last in-person board meeting, when we did that April budget when we produced this year's budget last April, we actually were really conservative, and we had forgotten we did this. We based PPR on last year's number, not the projected number. So actually, what the new PPR that we already know, it's higher than that number we used to calculate. So remember, PPR is per pupil revenue. You multiply that by your total number to get your revenue source. Because it's higher, it's going to even out that loss of 10 students. So really it balances out. It's not going to be the deficit we thought. And keep in mind with that enrollment number, last year we were at 401. So it is still an increase in enrollment. It's just not the number we forecasted. It's kind of hard to forecast. You know, a forecast is a forecast. You don't know in the end how it's going to play out. And looking forward, so for enrollment, we've already had 3 new family presentations. We've got another one tomorrow. We've had 2 of our middle school information nights, 1 more in December. And we'll do more if we think it's going to have an impact, but we wanted to hit all of these things and make sure we're doing our due diligence before round 1 opens up, which is December 2nd. Justin will be presenting about marketing committee, but our marketing committee is on fire right now, and we've really been proactive about making some adjustments, which I'll let him talk about when we review that. Just keep in mind the enrollment dates. December 2nd starts round 1, and on my report it gives all the date ranges, but that December 2nd for us, that's what I look at. It goes December 2nd until January 9th. And so really for us, it's getting that, any marketing, tours, everything. I mean, this is when families are looking at schools. So being really proactive. We really want to build, really in the end, you want to build your wait list because there's always some transition, as you know, in the spring and May and over the summer. And so just being more proactive than in the past about that. In the community events were listed on the principal's report. We've had a lot of things like mystery history, wax museum, some assemblies for the students, the Veterans Day assembly. And then the big thing, I guess, is just we've got the book fair when we come back from Thanksgiving. And then also we have a primary and lower L assessment day. So they will just be coming in on their assigned assessment days. So that is all for now. I think staffs and families, I think everyone's looking forward to a Thanksgiving break and then coming back refreshed in December. Any questions on the principal's report?
That sounds good. Thank you very much, Robin. Appreciate it. All right, we'll jump quickly over to calendar check-ins. So there's a number of items this month on the calendar, a couple substantive and some to set up for discussion for next month. So first up, grievance committee. This is a position that runs for a year and it's a staggered position. They roll off in June and December. So my 1-year term is going to come to an end in December, and then we need to nominate a new person to pick up that role for the coming year. And grievance committee, again, is to the extent there is an anonymous complaint that would deal with an administration or a governance type issue, something that would not be handled by Robin at the school level, sorry, that would be something that would be handled at the board level. And the grievance committee would be the first point of intake and kind of lead or the game planning on the investigative response. So I think Christine is the other member right now. Right, Christine, you're in the June cycle.
You said I'm the other grievance committee member?
Yes. So,
I don't think so. Unless that was like as de facto president.
no, it wouldn't have been. I'm not sure who the other grievance committee person is then.
Good question. Maybe we never signed someone.
It used to be Adam, and then
And Rebecca? Was it Rebecca?
Yeah, she was
Do we need two people? Is that the bylaws?
yeah.
For
Yeah,
the
you're-
bylaws, you have to have two people rotating off, out of order.
for the grievance committee.
Right.
So,
That
well,
was-
maybe to, or go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when we first discovered we needed a grievance committee, I think it was Reet and I, and we were the first two members to fulfill that per the bylaws. It hadn't been fulfilled to that to the letter, and there were a lot of grievance bylaws that needed to be revised. I think Emily addressed a lot of that, but you do need two members on the board, and they do offset each other with rotation on and off. So
Well, I could do it till June maybe, and then we vote someone for your spot, Ted, and that could be the primary person when you roll off in December, just so I'm not the primary person. And then in June, we'll add someone new. Would that work?
Fine. Or I can stay until June too. If you want to put somebody in for the next year, I don't mind staying on. That's fine. I can just stay through till end of term. That'll be fine.
Okay. Good thing we don't have very many grievances right now.
Right.
Knock on wood. Good job, everyone. So do we need to, so you'll stay on until June, and then do we want to put someone in your spot in December, or is that what would make sense?
I think that's fine. Yeah, we can talk about it next month. Put that on the item.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Next item up, year-end audit information to Zions. It looks like that might be a topic for finance committee coming up, so we can put a pin in that if you like. Discuss student fee adjustments for the next year to be discussed at December meeting and reset. So we can add that as a calendar discussion item for December and have that teed up to look at fees and any necessary adjustments.
What was it again, Ted? Just so I can make a note.
Student fee adjustments. And then the last item up, we have a note for set up strategic planning retreat for January. Not sure if that's an artifact from back when we were working on the 5-year plan, but we can talk about that more at another time, unless there's a plan to put together an offsite or some sort of multi-hour retreat for planning purposes.
Go to the mountains together. I think the last month we pulled that up too, and I think Robin, you and I were going to chat about it, maybe, but I didn't make a note of it because we talked about maybe just doing a couple, like an extra strategic session. Didn't we do that last year too, for a
Yeah,
couple hours?
We had to do because we had so much more work last year. I mean, we had the renewal going on. We finished up that strategic plan over the past year and a half. So I think we had more meetings because of that. The only other thing last year is we did do some just kind of social around the before winter break. I think it was right before. Do you remember that where we met
Mm-hmm.
offsite just for board, just bonding. I think we were going to talk about Christine. We haven't yet, but I think some of our other areas that aren't addressed in during this meeting, like I think that's what we were going to talk more about. The things that don't come up normally in our monthly meetings that we know are like goals. Right?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah. So I'll add it to our agenda, Robin. You and I could talk about it next, and then I'll have an action item from that to figure out how we schedule something.
Yeah.
Good. think that covers this month's items. All right.
Can I
Let's-
ask a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, my two screens aren't working. One's a camera and then I can see everybody on the other screen. What's your idea on fees? Like how much can we increase? Because we've been pretty low, not just student fees, but in tuition and aftercare pricing. Like what's a fair, like we're too far from like the high end. I don't want to go up 20%, but can we go up 4, 6, 8?
This
What
is
kind of
for next
information
year,
would you
right?
like from me?
This is for next year though, right, Jen?
Yeah, but we need to get them approved and like you're giving tours for next year, so they need to know what the fees will look like.
So is this something that maybe we could, because this is a big, yeah, I don't know, I mean, Christine, is this something that needs to be on the agenda to be discussed right now? Because it seems like a big topic.
I was going to say, I'm not sure we can jump into that
Right.
without it being on the agenda
Okay.
because it's a fiscal item.
But we could put it on for, I think that would be a good thing to put on for the December meeting.
Yeah.
I think that would be soon enough, Jen.
Okay.
But Jen, in that time, definitely let's collect your thoughts on that
Yeah.
so we can bring that to the next board meeting for discussion.
All good. Doing a quick time check. I know we have our guest joining at 1:15 and we're right at the hour. Oh, and here we are. Should we jump now? That's perfect timing since I said so. All right, looks like Matt DeAngelis has just joined. So Matt, welcome to the Montessori Peaks Academy board meeting here.
Hey Ted, thank you. Are we up now?
We
Sorry.
are up and we're on live. We were just mentioning we are doing a quick time check and mentioned we were going to stop when you joined and you tagged in like right then. So
Oh, nice.
if you're ready, we can move on. We can do a couple other items if you're not ready yet, but if you're ready to jump in.
No, I can be ready. No problem.
Perfect.
You want me to, yeah, just so everybody knows, in case, I can't remember if we talked about last time, we asked Matt DeAngelis, he worked with the MPA board and team, I think years ago, right? I don't know when this was. And he negotiated the first, or helped or supported in that, the loan. And so we reached out to Matt about, we know we're gonna need to refinance and really asked him, could he start showing us the timeline? He offered to come to the board meeting. They do these kinds of trainings to help us understand the process we need to go through. So Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Robin. And nice to be with you all. Appreciate you having me. So just a little bit of background here. I put this together just to kind of help guide the conversation, but please, if you have questions or if you want me to skip through things or if you want to stop me, please just let me know. But I'm here to try and be helpful. So use it however you want. So in 2020, we did a financing during COVID to refinance your prior bonds and fund the acquisition of the church so you guys could expand. And it was kind of like a 2 or 3 year process to actually do the financing. And as you can imagine, a lot kind of transpired between the beginning and the end with the church becoming available and also COVID, et cetera. So it was an interesting process nonetheless. But anyway, we set it up at the time. The board of the school and the leadership team really thought being a moral ob school would be important, and we'll talk more about what that means. But that was kind of the end goal, and so they wanted to lock in financing to do the refinancing, but also to fund the acquisition and kind of make it all happen. And then once they were kind of settled, or once you all were settled, refinance into the moral ob program. And so that's why we did the short-term option instead of the long-term option. We presented both at the time, but that was what, the rate was just drastically lower. And it was also just kind of, they really thought being a moral op school was important. And so that's why they decided to do what they did. And so some of you may have been on that board, I can't recall, but that was kind of the nexus of what happened and why it happened. And so that's where you are today. Unfortunately, the bank that did the original financing was BBVA Compass, who was very friendly and frankly, just a much easier people to work with for charter schools. And obviously that's since turned into PNC, and we all know kind of how that's gone. And so It's one of the things you kind of have to take on as a risk when you do a bank financing, is that all these banks get acquired on a regular basis, and it's just part of the risk of the whole thing. As we're seeing now with First Bank soon to be acquired by PNC, it's going to continue to grow. So that being said, you guys have an amazing interest rate, something that can never be achieved today. So, what we're going to try to do today is just kind of outline what tax-exempt bonds are for those of you who have never been through this process. But more or less, it's basically a way for the federal government to subsidize governmental entities and nonprofits. And it allows you to borrow at an interest rate lower than you otherwise would be able to, because the interest that the investor or lender earns is tax exempt. So they don't have to pay taxes on the interest that they get from you all. And so therefore, they're willing to give you a lower rate. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about your current financing, and then we'll look at your financing or your credit metrics relative to the other credits that rating agencies rate, and how that might impact what you might be able to achieve in the future. So we're here to help. We're here to understand your long-term goals, or I'm here. And, again, this is supposed to be a conversation, so please just jump in if you have questions, or if you want me to talk about other things that I haven't covered. So just background on us, just real quick, so you know who we are. We started doing charter school bond financings in 1998. For Liberty Common was our first client up in Fort Collins. I think we just did our 5th financing last December for Liberty Common. So very proud of the fact that we've been their investment banker since '98 and continue to maintain a really good relationship with them. And I've been doing this since 2007 and have been at Davidson for the last 10 and a half years or so. So really committed to this market. We're the #1 underwriter of charter school bonds, going all the way back to the beginning of charter school bonds in '98, and then also here in Colorado, we're the leader. So that's who we are. Let's see. All right. So what are tax-exempt bonds? Just real quick, for those of you who may not know. I mean, the way I like to say it, it's like a home mortgage, except for it's kind of fancier. It can be cut up into multiple pieces, so there's more than one lender. But at the end of the day, it's a long-term or short-term loan, like an ARM or a long-term, fixed rate loan to finance facilities or capital projects. Obviously, we can use them to finance charter schools, but also pretty much everything that's backbone of society is financed with tax-exempt bonds, whether it's government buildings, school district schools, libraries, fire districts, affordable housing, roads, you name it. It can be and probably is financed with tax-exempt bonds. So moving on. So the real 2 options that are available to a school like Montessori Peaks is short-term bank financing and long-term public market bond financing. So the difference between the two is stark, to be honest with you. Shorter term financings with a bank are typically for good credits. So, an early stage charter school that's not like Montessori Peaks, banks aren't going to be interested in that. They're not going to provide that financing, and there's a couple of reasons for that, but a lot of it comes down to loan to value. Typically banks are subject to loan to value requirements, and when you're a more mature school, you've built up equity in your facility, then that becomes less of an issue. But early stage charter schools aren't going to be able to put millions of dollars into a facility in order to finance it. And so that option goes off the table. The reason people do it is because it's typically can be a lower interest rate. You guys are in the 2s. That's not something that long-term financing has ever offered, and certainly doesn't offer now, and even short-term financing doesn't offer that now. But it's, that was a big reason why this was of interest. And then also, they typically don't require you to set aside a reserve fund or borrow extra money as a safety net, whereas the long-term bond market does. So it reduces the amount you have to borrow, which also means that you are paying less interest because you're borrowing less. So that was kind of the rationale back in the day. And then again, it provides that bridge where you kind of do what you say you're going to do, and then maybe you can hop into the state moral law program where the state's backing your bonds. And again, we'll talk about that later. One of the things that you guys have had to deal with is you have to bank with them. When you do long-term bond financing, that's not something that's required. The bond investors in the long-term public bond market don't care if you have your money anywhere. Doesn't matter what bank you're with, but here, they required you to move all your money over there and bank with them. So Should you decide to leave them, you'll be allowed to release those deposits to go to whatever bank you choose and won't be stuck to PNC anymore. Lastly, obviously, we're all here for a reason. In 2 years, you guys are going to have to refinance because it's a maturity and you're not going to be able to pay it off and it's a balloon. So that was the big risk from the beginning and something that we're dealing with here today. Long-term bond financing is pretty much the whole market can access. So you're thinking about anything from a brand new school with a charter school contract in hand, with no cash, no kids, no audit, sliver in their eye, and that's something we can finance, surprisingly, all the way up to mature schools who are investment grade rated credits. So it's really the whole spectrum, and obviously the terms differ between the new start school all the way up to that very mature school like a Liberty Common. But it's the bond market is very accessible for charter schools across the board. The biggest positive is that it's committed long-term capital. So it's 30 to 40-year financing where there's no interest rate risk at the time that the maturity happens, that's gone, right? So you don't have to do anything. If you want to do something, there's an option to refinance in the future, but you're not required to. On the flip side, you do have to fund that debt service reserve fund, and that's equal to 1 year of debt service. So if your payment's $1 million, then you also have to borrow an extra $1 million and put it in a restricted account, which can be invested, but at the end of the day, it's still restricted money that you have to keep there and have to borrow and pay interest on. So that's a negative of that the structure. Yeah, I mean, you don't really care at this point because you guys are material credit, but like 100% financing, you don't have to worry about loan to value. There's no risk that your appraisal comes back and then you can't borrow the amount you wanted to borrow. And then lastly, typically you can't refinance for 7 to 10 years. And again, just kind of harping on the issue, like the reason the prior board or the board didn't want to do it at the time was they wanted to do what they were going to do and then refinance as quick as possible. And here, we're looking at typically you can't refinance for at least 7 to 10 years in the public market. I think this is more of the same, and I'm happy to send this presentation to all of you afterwards, but it's more of the same, just kind of summarized in a table. All right, so, focusing on kind of you and what kind of credit you are today and maybe where you can go from here to help improve your credit as you get ready to refinance. Here's the existing deal that we did in 2020. It was originally 5.9 million. Now it's a little less than 5 million. Your interest rate's under 3% at 2.96. The bonds are callable at any time now, so you guys can refinance whenever you want with like 30 days notice. So if the market makes sense and you want to do it, we can do it, which is nice, and there's not a penalty for doing it. But you have to do it basically in that 2-year window between what was July 1st of 2025 and then July 1st, 2027. Your annual debt service is $325,000, and the bonds are not rated, so you don't have any sort of credit rating or anything like that associated with the bonds. So thinking about that going forward, how are we going to decide? How are we going to achieve the best interest rate? What are the market determinants that make that happen? Obviously, the main thing is what is the market like when you do the financing? We were in this very much rising interest rate environment where the Fed was raising rates, and that was leading to long-term rates being higher, short-term rates being higher. And thankfully, you guys didn't have any issue with that because your interest rate was locked. But as you look to refinance, unless things start to come down, your rate's going to be higher. And frankly, when we did that in 2020, it was an artificial market because COVID money and the government just really stepped in and made interest rates really low, that artificially low, to be honest with you. Like, there was nobody that should have been borrowing at the rates they were borrowing at, but you guys benefited from it, which is nice. But obviously, now we have to figure out what to do going forward if rates aren't going to be as low. The Fed has started to lower rates. They've lowered the Fed funds rate a couple times, and there's a big question of whether they're going to keep doing that in December and then going forward. To the extent they do that, that should impact your rates in the market. I would say that the municipal bond market has been really strong in the last, 4 or 5 months. Like lots of deals that wouldn't have been able to get done were getting done, and then rates and spreads. So the rate that a school achieves relative to the index or the benchmark, like the treasury market, it's a different index for our market, but for purposes of this conversation, the index versus what the school is achieving has pretty much cut in half. So that's been great to see that the spreads have come down a lot. And that just tells us that people think our rates are coming down, and that means they're more interested in buying bonds, because when rates go down, the value of bonds go up. And so lock it in now so that if rates keep going down, your bond becomes more valuable, basically. So we've seen a lot of that, and the expectation is that's going to continue in 2026. And we'll see where it goes from there. But I think it's positive for you all. It's the right way. That the trend is good. But again, the rates in 2020 were artificial. So I don't know that we'll ever get back to those kinds of sub 3% type rates. Other things. Oh,
Sorry, I was
right.
gonna ask, I don't know if now's the right time or if you got a different.
Yeah, no, please jump in.
Just kind of between the banks, and we talked about consolidation. Our previous bank has been acquired, PNC's acquisitive, right? So it seems like maybe there's a smaller pool of lenders on that side versus like how broad and accessible is the bond market. Like just from an accessibility perspective, is there more competition for the business in the bond market, or what's the difference in that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much more liquid. The market is much broader, much more universal almost. Our sales desk is across the nation calling all the funds that buy charter school bonds. We do, the most or the second most charter school bond deals every year. So we are very active in the space, and investors are focused on what we're doing. The bank market, you're absolutely right. I mean, it has consolidated. We're seeing more of it. We've also seen, banks become less competitive because their borrowing cost has gone up so much that like the value of a short-term bank deal relative to a long-term bond deal has really compressed to the point where it may not make any sense. So I guess what I would say is that if we were to go forward with the refinancing, we're happy, like we did last time, to evaluate both options, to kind of dual track it and go out and get proposals for the shorter term placements. If you still are interested in that, I get that this is kind of painful right now. So, but if that's of interest, then happy to do that. And then also we could go out and get a credit assessment from one of the rating agencies and compare the terms of what a publicly offered market deal would be compared to what the short-term bank options are. And then you could decide what makes more sense based on your priorities and goals.
Okay. And again, think about the timeline. So thanks for showing those trigger windows. So we're now kind of at what, 18, 20 months, whatever it is, before we have to not just do it, but be closed, right? Is there a timeline difference on the bond market underwriting versus a bank traditional financing route? Like an extra couple months to the process or anything like that?
No, we would dual track it. So we'd send out the RFP, which we give like banks 3 weeks to respond typically. And then we would also do their credit rating at the same time. And so we would get that back in about 3 weeks, and then we could have the market information in hand. But we can typically do the whole process in 3 to 4 months. And obviously I'd rather do it earlier than 3 months before 7/1/27.
Right.
We can always delay the pricing or actually doing the deal. So I'd rather start, earlier on, and then we can always push it backwards if we want to.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's gonna be important for the board, but I think critically, we don't need like 9 months for bond market underwriting versus 6 months for a bank or anything like that.
No, nothing like that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good question. Total debt size, in our market, bigger is better. So you guys have a small deal, so that's a negative. I mean, it is what it is. And you guys probably feel good about that, but in our market, if you're doing $100 million deal for a charter school, it gets eaten up even if it's a bad credit, because they know they can trade amongst each other if things, if they have tight times internally or whatever. But it is what it is. We can still sell it. It's just not a positive when we're going out to price the bonds. Colorado's a great charter school state. Like, it's very well regarded. Our taxes aren't nearly as high as New York or California or whatever. So the value of the bonds aren't as much, but it's a great state from a charter school's perspective. So people love buying Colorado charter school bonds because the market's been really good and stable. And then the last part, which is the most important part besides the market, is your credit story. And that's the one you can control the most, right? That's the thing that you guys can move the needle on. Everything else is kind of outside of your control, but this is where you guys can make changes or do things to improve your marketability in the market. And frankly, you guys are a good school. You guys have done well. So I don't know that I'm making a comment of you need to do a lot. I would just say that there's certainly some things you could always improve upon to get a better interest rate. But a lot of times we have schools that sure they could get a better interest rate, but they're more, the more important thing is educating students and paying teachers and all of that. And so it's a decision point for the board. So kind of here's the range of options. I don't know that we really need to go through them, but as you move up the credit spectrum, of course, your interest rate decreases. So you're kind of in this third bullet where you would have been able to do like a sub investment grade rated bond, so double B or double B plus, or the bank placement. You pick the bank placement. Now, of course, the hope would be to move into investment grade and or the moral law program just based on lowest interest rate. Of course, like I just said, there may be other reasons why you don't want to do that or why it doesn't make sense. But that's how you get to the lowest interest rates is getting to an investment grade rating. So what does investment grade mean? So here's a table that shows you kind of the range, AAA being the best. So that's like state of Maryland, state of Utah, city of Denver, nothing a charter school is ever going to achieve. The bottom of investment grade is triple B minus or Baa3 from Moody's, which is where that green line is. And then everything below that's considered sub-investment grade or non-investment grade. The two ratings in that category that are still valuable when marketing bonds in the market today are double B plus or double B. So the first two. And you guys, frankly, today you guys can get that rating. You can get one of those ratings. They're very valuable in marketing bonds. If we didn't get to that, all these other ratings are not valuable. We'd rather go out non-rated and let the funds decide for themselves what kind of credit they think you are. Putting a double B minus or a B plus out there is not good in the market. So that being said, the Carta Moral Law program is the keys to the lowest interest rate. And going back here, the key to getting the Moral Law program is triple B minus. So if you can get to triple B minus, we just did Addenbrooke Classical and Jeffco. They got triple B minus for the first time. And now, because of that, they're up at double A. So the state's rating jumps them from triple B minus all the way up to almost the top, right? So you can imagine what a difference in interest rate that's going to create relative to triple B minus or double B plus or whatever, right? And so Addenbrooke just did that. And that saves you, give or take, about 1% on your borrowing costs. And so that's the simplest thing in the world. Like all you have to do is get there. There's nothing else that they require of you to make the program for the state. It's very, non-bureaucratic. It's very objective. And then you get into the double A category.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they did that by expanding to high school and significantly increasing their enrollment. I'm pretty sure that's.
Yeah, well, so we did the first financing for them and they acquired their building and whatever. And then the second financing was to expand to high school. And if they had decided they didn't want to do that, then their credit is what it is. Like they're full, they're doing what they're doing. Their days cash on hand was good. They had good enrollment, they had good wait list. And so we could have potentially gotten them investment grade then, but that wasn't their goal. Their goal was to go to high school.
Right.
So
I talked to that principal though, and I think that's what that enabled them to bump to that rating though, right? Is because their enrollment obviously increased.
It was part of it, but I've done investment grade rated charter schools with 350 kids.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be big.
Yeah.
It definitely helps, and we'll see that in a minute when we look at the medians for the different rating agency medians for different categories. But what I will say is like, if you aren't where you want to grow to and you're not already there, you're not going to get investment grade, right? Like if you're not already where you want to be, if you're speculative, if there's something about it that's not already done, then you're not getting investment grade. And so that's basically what it comes down to, most importantly. Of course, there's other metrics, but that's the most important one is like, have you already proved that you can do it? And if you haven't, then they're not going to give you an investment grade rating. So that's first thing, and I'll show you that in a minute. But so the last thing I want to say about this is there's $1 billion of capacity. It was 750 million until last May when the league helped get that increased by 250 million to 1 billion. So there's about $250 million of capacity available. So that's something we watch all the time. But I don't foresee this based on what I've seen in the market, but if $250 million of charter schools qualified and decided they wanted to issue bonds, that capacity could go away so that even if you got the investment grade rating, you still couldn't have the moral law program. Now, that being said, every time we've hit the capacity over the last decade, like we went from 300 million to $1 billion in the last decade. So the state's been very open to it. And part of that is because none of the schools in the moral law program have ever defaulted, which is huge. And hopefully it never happens. But anyway, that's just something to note. because that is something that's out of your control. All right, so I think you all know this, but like, what are the things that make you a strong credit? Obviously, consistent demand, high retention, demographics in the area, which Jeffco obviously doesn't have. That's a problem in Jeffco. Waitlist, to the extent you have a good waitlist, that's great and helpful. But we've gotten schools to investment grade without waitlists, but it definitely helps if you have a good waitlist. Performance, academic performance is huge. What kind of competition is there? Is there new schools coming online that you don't know if they're going to impact your ability to draw kids? Your charter relationship and contract, I think, the district's a great partner for the most part, I believe. At least in terms of what I live in the world I live in, where I see lots of crazy stuff amongst charter authorizers. The board, the diversified background and success of the school and long-term longevity and stable planning and all that stuff, succession planning, etc. That's all important. We can go through all of that at some point if that's something we need to dive into. But I think you guys have a great board based on my experience. Management team, I mean, Robin and I have been in communication a lot over this PNC stuff, and obviously you've got a very dedicated and committed leader who's good at presenting, so I think you're in a good spot there. Financial performance is an area that obviously PNC's keyed in on, and somewhere that, frankly, the one negative I see is your days cash on hand. It's low for investment grade. And then the ratios, how much debt you have per student, et cetera, and I think you're in great shape there. All right, so these are kind of the keys. Again, I just kind of spoke about all this. I think the last thing is plan certainty. Here, I think all we're talking about is refinancing. And so that is huge. If you went to the rating meeting and said, oh, I want to open another school, or I want to expand grades, or whatever it might be, that just raises red flags left and right. But I think here, all we're talking about is something you've already done, and it's just refinancing, which is a huge key and positive for you guys. All right, so here's you guys. So the medians are double B plus, and triple B minus. So triple B minus, remember, is like the ticket to moral op. And you can see enrollment, revenue, etc. So you can see that enrollment's huge, right? All these, even double B, way higher. That being said, I just got 2 schools rated that were much younger than you, much less credit worthy than you. They had 200 and some odd kids, and they both got double B. So take that with a grain of salt. Revenue, same thing, right? Because obviously revenue is just enrollment times amount of funding. Coverage, debt service coverage shows your ability to operate with flexibility. You guys did great in 25. 185 coverage is excellent. That's plenty healthy. Then you look at days cash on hand, and this is their big negative that I see. You're at 73 days cash on hand. I know you've invested in the school, and perhaps that makes no sense for you to have 191 days cash on hand. And candidly, like, there was a time when 73 days cash on hand would have been investment grade, but that metric has continued to go up and up and up. And so if you really want to get to investment grade, I don't even know if it's possible, because they look at liquidity as a huge part of this. You definitely need to be over 100 days. I would say 120 days probably to have a chance. So that's a question for you all. Like, how much are you willing to sacrifice just to save cash? And is it worth it? Like, are you gonna sacrifice everything else just to get cash? But just to be candid, like, that's obviously a huge negative relative to 191 days.
Yeah, could you borrow a bit more? Just looking at this debt per student number, where it looks like we've got lower debt per student, right? I mean, is that an option to pull out an extra 200K and stuff in the account and I mean, it's a conversation for another day, but I mean, are there levers to pull?
Yeah, you could borrow for operational purposes. I wouldn't say the rating agencies view that the same as just having the cash on your balance sheet, but like, you could reimburse yourself for expenses that were capital related, and that would play just fine. So to the extent you've spent money on capital expenditures, you could reimburse yourself for some of those potentially. And then the last thing we didn't know when we put this together was, like, if you have a wait list and what % of enrollment is that? Because obviously, again, the more you can show that, like, okay, maybe we're not 1,300 or 1,400 kids, but we have 411 kids and we have whatever on the wait list, like we have a really healthy program. It's very stable and we can make it work.
The question about that, because this would have been applied to Addenbrook as well. There's a certain point in the year where we have a wait list and then they zero it out after a certain date. Like, so
Yeah.
basically right now there's zero because that's what they do. They do it, I think it's in September. Is it just like a point in time wait list number? Okay.
Yeah, we pick, I mean, I would help you pick.
Yeah.
I don't know what data you have, but you want to pick a date where it looks really strong.
Yep.
And I mean, to be honest with you, this is where people play the most games.
Okay, I
certain
figured so.
states-
Yeah, because you could pick it in like May and look very different than after this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how you kind of stack up. I think you're absolutely a double B or double E plus candidate. Triple B minus, I think definitely gonna have to do some work on days cash on hand. And I don't know, enrollment trends and wait list, I don't know, that's a question. All right. That was really the bulk of the presentation, to be honest with you. I know you guys have a lot to get to tonight. The rest of this is really, informational on terms of, for those of you who may not have been through this, all the parties involved, the timeline, which we kind of talked about, but in more detail, those kinds of things. So happy to go through it, but I know you guys are busy and it's really kind of just stuff that I wouldn't say the board needs to know every little nuance of.
I think for us, a big thing would be knowing, yeah, so it's good to know, yeah, who are the players on the team, and then some of the big milestones, like, hey, we better have a decision on certain key milestones by what date. I'm thinking like, we certainly don't want to wait till, 3 months before July 1st of 2027, but like, so T minus 6 months, we should be going. So then minus 9 months, minus 12 months, like what kind of, you have to be granular on it, but
Yeah.
just a couple big, just, kind of go, no-go gates and when we should kick off some of the important work streams.
So what I would say is we'll monitor this for you guys. Like, of course, if the market adjusts significantly and it makes sense to just go as soon as possible, we will be in touch, but I don't foresee that, but you never know. What I would say is let's get your audit for fiscal year 26. Hopefully we can make that look as good as possible. Huddle up and then do this again as a group, look at the metrics and start that process. And that's going to give you plenty of time and strike when it makes sense to do so. But I think once you have your fiscal year 26 audit in hand, that's when we'll be basically using to go out to the market. So
and that comes out like our audit for this year just came out like in October, I think. So
Yeah.
that was next October. We'll have that, the district approved one. I can't remember the date. Jen knows the date. And that's when we'd start that conversation, correct?
Yeah, that gives you 8 to 9 months.
Mhm.
That's plenty of time. And again, if anything changes on your end or if the market changes, we would of course, reach out.
I guess the last ask I'd have then, if there's any kind of obvious like enhancements or, do this, a lever to pull that's, I don't say easy, we'd be interested in what those levers might be, but stuff we could do over the next 12 months so that, again, it's not just doing something speculative, but there's active steps that we could take in the next year, 12 months, whatever that is, and be ready
Yeah,
to run a run rate.
Yeah, I love that question. I know you guys spent money on the roof, I believe. When was that?
It was, what was it, spring 2024? Is that correct? Or was it the year before, Jen? Because I came on board and they had voted on the roof. And I came on board in 2023. So it must have been spring of 2023 or around that time is when they voted that.
Okay.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was just as you were coming on.
Yeah. And my first year here was 23, 24. So they would have been voting on it spring, summer.
Okay. So what I was going to say is you can execute a reimbursement resolution. So to the extent you spend money on capital projects, we can reimburse you from the bond financing. So Ted, to your point of how do we juice our balance sheet up? Unfortunately, it only has a 90-day look back. So things you've spent money on, 2 or 3 years ago, we can't capture. So unless you guys happen to have had your lawyer do that for you, which I doubt you would have, but if you did, we could reimburse you for those expenses. But to the extent that you have other capital expenditures you're going to do this year, we should execute a reimbursement resolution so we can pay you back from the bonds and hopefully help bolster your liquidity that way.
Okay.
That's my first idea. The second idea is you should definitely, try and save cash this year, if you can. Again, like, got to figure out what makes sense for you. But from purely what's the lowest interest rate perspective, it's saving money and putting that on your balance sheet and showing healthy operating margins and also, higher liquidity levels.
With that Ted knows this better than I do, I'm sure. I know. Reimbursement resolution, like when would we start working on something like that? And Ted, maybe you already know this.
No, it sounds like when you've got a capital expenditure, you've got to act within 90 days. Sounds
Oh.
like, so we missed the boat
Yes.
on the roof, unfortunately. But
Okay.
another way to look at it, if we have meaningful CapEx spend coming up, then we say, okay, wait, let's get organized, let's do this thoughtfully and make sure that we, so with Matt and we put the right actions in place when we do it so that we can capture that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bill Bethke's your lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bethke's all very familiar with this. So to the extent you have either spent money within the last 90 days or you are going to this year or before we would do the bond financing, you put it in place at a board meeting. It's an action item. It takes 2 seconds. It says, yes, we may reimburse ourselves from the tax exempt bond issuance in the future. And IRS rules are very specific about this, but really all it does is give you the option. So you don't have to reimburse yourself for anything. So you guys could do it at the next board meeting just in case you decide to spend money. And then it covers you to the extent that you do it. And then when we want to reimburse you at that point, when we do financing, we can. If we don't have that in place, we could reimburse you, just like we could reimburse you for the roof, but it would have to be a taxable bond. So it's going to be a higher borrowing rate than tax exempt.
So Ted, that landscaping, would that count into that? Like, is that something we could?
Yeah, if we
Or-
do it, we should do a 90-day look back from our next board. We should do it at the next board meeting and then look back 90 days and then everything from there forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Into it. And then that's effectively I don't want to call it cash out refi, but that's extra cash as you draw at the time of borrowing and that goes straight to the balance sheet. So that'll help our days cash on hand. That'd be a good lever. Okay.
Yeah, and we could do, I mean, I don't know if you want to do it, but we could do the roof. It would just be taxable. It would just not be lower borrowing costs. So I don't know if it's worth it or not, to be honest with you, but we could look at it. I don't remember how much you spent on it.
That's 300,000. I mean, it's going to be a big number.
Yeah. So
It was
something
enough.
can-
It's
we
probably
can
going to
look
go up
at.
all the other CapEx combined. So maybe worth it anyway.
Yeah, and we can look at the different scenarios and be like, okay, well, here's the cost and here's maybe the benefit vice versus not doing it at that point. But something for put on the, pin it in there to think about for later.
Yep.
But yeah, I think you should do that at the next board meeting. And Robin, I would just reach out to Bill and say, hey, Matt mentioned we should put a reimbursement resolution in place for these potential capital expenditures, and he'll know exactly what to do. And if he has questions, just tell him to reach out to me.
Okay.
I don't think it'll work for the landscaping because they wouldn't let me process that through building improvements. They made me bill it through contractor services.
Huh.
They said because they couldn't capitalize on the services, the lawn, the cement, the plants and trees.
Well, we finance landscaping all the time, so it may be a different conversation on my side versus your side.
Okay.
So I would just do it either way just to be safe, and then when the time comes, we can get the tax lawyers involved to figure out what we can and can't do.
So Matt, basically, I need to just email Bill Bethke and say at our next board meeting, we'd like to initiate a reimbursement resolution and he'll know what to do.
Yeah, say we have some capital expenditures coming up, and Matt said we should put a reimbursement resolution in place just to make sure we cover ourselves in case we want to reimburse ourselves. And just kick him to me if he has any questions, and I'll answer the rest.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Any other questions, or is this helpful? Is there anything I've missed that you want to talk about?
super helpful.
Good.
Really appreciate your time, Matt.
Yeah, happy to do it. And I'm so sorry about PNC. This is so lame and just unbelievable, to be honest with you. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
So sorry
You
you
know
guys have
what?
to go with this.
It looks like we're in the clear now. Like we just have to get the final paperwork as far as being, yeah.
Good. Good. That's where you should be. It's total BS.
Yeah.
4 months
Yeah.
ago, yes. It'll work out.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll get there.
Well, cool. We'll let you guys get to the rest of your meeting, and thanks for having me.
And Matt, you'll share the slideshow?
Oh, I can send it to you right now. No problem.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Happy
Take care.
Thanksgiving.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin, for setting that up. Really good information for the board. All right. Just doing time check. We should jump in and do committee reports, and then we can reassess where we're at. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Do finance up first.
Okay. Jen, do we want to, you want me to do the PNC updates first?
Yeah.
Okay. So the finance committee just met before this meeting. That's why we were late. So we apologize. We wanted to touch base about the PNC negotiation status first. So we've been, ever since we had the meeting with Lori Deacon, their tone has completely changed. And we announced that in last month's in-person meeting. So it's been much better. They've had a couple pieces of paperwork they needed, and we've have those in. And we need to see it in writing first. But what it's looking like is that they're going to put cash on hand, the requirement at 70 days, and we're at 73. And if you remember, the cash on hand was what was not in compliance. They had it at 90. So obviously we're out of compliance because we were at 73. So if they put it at 70, as long as we don't drop below that, we'll be in compliance. And then a 1.85 coverage ratio, which our coverage ratio has always been in compliance. So we submitted the end of the year audit that was finalized by Jeffco, and that's why it's taken so long. We had to wait for that audit, which takes a little bit. It takes some time to come from Jeffco, and hopefully we'll have that soon. We haven't been given the day yet, but again, they've totally changed their tune. So Jen and I are very relieved because that was a lot of extra meetings. Any questions on the PNC update? Okay.
Thank you guys for your work on that. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, and I guess the other thing too is we'll still do quarterly reporting, but really the numbers they're going to look at for the loan compliance will be end of year, because we really spent a lot of time talking to them about that, how at schools it has to be the end of the year. And that's what Matt had reinforced to us, is you can't base it on a quarterly compliance with the way the school funding comes in. So that's the other aspect that they are changing. All right, as far as any other, let's see. So if you remember, we projected this year's budget last April, because that's what we have to do for Jeffco and submit it. And what we will be doing now, once we have everything final in, is we're working right now on just modifications to the budget, because what always happens is we need to move some categories around. And when Jen goes over budget versus actuals, you'll see what we're talking about. But what we're projecting right now is January is the time, because we need some time to work on that, and the finance committee needs time to review it, and then we'll be showing that at the January board meeting. And that's something we'll need to vote on, because that'll be the revised budget for the 25-26 school year. So that leads into Jen reviewing the budget versus actuals.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen, but this is the information that Christine sent out. Did anybody look at the audit or have any questions on last year's audit? It came out fine. There was no problems. The first few pages kind of is an auditor's take on it, and it just confirms that they're looking at, normal accounting practices, and they don't have any reason to believe that there's anything wrong. So I guess you don't have to look at it. I just told you. Budget versus actuals. This is going back to last month. So unfortunately, these corrections to the different whether it was a student computer purchased or a staff computer purchase and a couple just accounting transactions, they got done in November because of all the auditing taking place at the district. So that'll be reflected next month. So for now, everything is status quo. This is our 33% of the budget is where we're at. We're high in revenue. We're spot on salaries. I always look at that one first. We're a little bit high in purchase services. There's front-loaded expenses in there. We did, the work over the summer. Things should slow down for the winter. Next is the consumable supplies, 58%, totally normal. We've actually had the teachers like really think about the rest of the school year and put in all the orders, and we really tried to cap spending at the beginning of October. So we should be sailing for the rest of the year, hopefully. Overall 37%, so a little bit high, but again, there's lots of front-loaded things, and as our money rolls in, we'll look even better. This is so ridiculous. So our coverage ratio for our budget, 1.24. We'll look at it today, 9.95. That's because these monthly don't mean really anything. It's the end of the year, the wrap up, the true audit that shows you. This part wasn't on what I sent, but I added it. Robin said that Christine wanted to see these days on hand. So we're required 70 for fiscal year 25, 73. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that monthly because it costs about $700 to get the report run. So I think unless it's needed, we're just going to do it with the audit. That's all the bank's asking for. Any questions?
Sorry, just trying to reconcile everything. So back to the point that was made earlier, down on enrollment projection, but conservative on PPR.
Yeah, I have it all right here. Well, right here in my hand. So basically, we estimated $11,002 for 25, 26. It actually was $11,413. So we were under 410. If you multiply that by 410, that's an increase of 168,485.
Okay,
So
cool.
that compensates for our 10 less students.
And then some. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Which is, we need the and then some bucket, so that's good. Okay, great. Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm. How do I stop sharing? Stop share. There we go.
So, thanks, Jen. All right, next up, marketing.
Yeah, as Robin pointed out, we've been on a tear, and we had about $2,000 in the budget to spend. We begged Jen not to cut that. I think that's pretty menial, and with every student we bring through the door, we make a significant multiplier for those additional students. So the focus is really on homeschool right now. I know Robin brought that up. We've been working with Melissa. The direction we're going to take with that, so the dollars are best utilized, is to highly target through a digital marketing campaign, looking at specific keywords, looking at specific homeschooling groups, and we're going to spend about $500 of that budget on a highly targeted meta campaign. So we're just kind of working through that right now, and we're working on creative and making sure we've got that dialed in before we launch. On the parent, the other piece we're doing is a parent survey that's going to go out to parents in the school. That's really twofold. One piece of that is to collect expertise, areas of expertise, what people do well, what they have interest in, and then hopefully start building out, as Christine's been on a mission here to do, more committee volunteers and folks that can help on our committees, because we are limited as a board to only 2 board members, which doesn't make much of a committee. It just makes 2 people doing a lot of work. So if we can pull in more families to help with the committees, that survey is hopefully going to help us mine a little bit. And then at the same time, we're going to use it to farm reviews for MPA. We were looking online. We don't actually have reviews on Google. If you go to Maps, they don't allow reviews of schools in certain categories. But there's, correct me if I'm wrong, Robin, it's great schools.
Yeah,
And,
great schools is the
and
main.
yeah. And there was one other niche, is it?
We talked about niche, but we haven't, I don't know if we've decided yet if we're doing it on there. We definitely are going to feed it into great schools.
Yeah, so when they do this survey, they're going to rate us with their own stars. And if they rate us highly, it will automatically jump them over to great schools so they can do an actual comment and give us a nice rating and start bumping us up in these areas. So so the survey will come out. Do we have a target for that yet, Robin? I know we're looking at, I think the final iteration of it right now just came out from Adam.
I think we didn't decide that yet because Adam Livingston's been working with us as well, and he just sent out, like, you created it, Justin, didn't you? The survey, or Adam?
Yeah, I worked on the questions, and then Adam put it into type form, so it's nice. It's pretty to look at. So.
Okay. Yeah, so we're just really looking at the final. We meet next week, so I imagine next week we'll decide that, or not next week, after Thanksgiving.
December. I think we're going to probably release it sometime after Thanksgiving, since people are distracted and traveling. It's just not a great time to hit them with a survey. So and then one that kind of hit us as we were talking through how we noticed other schools is that, we always notice the RJ for Regis. We always notice the D'Evelyn stickers on the backs of other cars. Why doesn't MPA have a sticker? So utilizing our brilliant creative talent and a little bit of ChatGPT, we've come up with some really nice designs. Yeah. And we're working on just integrating the school colors, integrating a pretty clean and easy message, and something that we hope people would be interested in smacking on the back of their car and doing a little promotion for the school, just driving around and being supporters of the school. So we'll get those stickers made. And I think the budget we're looking at is less than $300. So staying well within our little $2,000 neck of the woods. And these stickers would be, a couple of them would be free to families to put on their cars. And then there was even discussion of maybe turning them over to be sold at the MPA store by the students or something like that as a promotional product. So, and then Lisa's getting our social posts more active. If you haven't seen them, or if you haven't liked the Facebook or the Insta accounts, please make sure you do. And then we're exploring some other social channels. So yeah, we've been meeting weekly, and everybody's doing a great job. And I really appreciate Melissa and Adam and Sarah. Thank you for joining us as well. And I plan on passing the baton to you, Sarah, eventually. We'll have that conversation at the next meeting when my time is up. So.
And Justin, I would say, and also Adam is working on the Google Maps. I don't know if we figured it out yet, where if people search for homeschool, it actually comes up, which it doesn't right now, I think. And so he knows how to do that. So he's working on that right now, as well as the middle school. So if you move to the area and you did a search on middle schools, we want MPA to show up, in that list. So, right.
And homeschools too. I think we were trying to make it that it both the middle school and the homeschool would come up if you did a search. So, yeah. So just integrating and using the tools that are free and available to us, making sure that we're getting more of that done. So.
But I want to say,
nice work, Justin.
Yeah, Justin and Adam, it's invaluable.
And Robin and Melissa
and Sarah will be joining us as well. And
Lisa.
Yeah.
Right,
I think Melissa feels very supported, because I think she had been saying to me, I don't really know how to get the word out any more than she does. You know what I mean? So it is very helpful because they have that expertise.
Hey guys, real quick, sorry to butt in. So another thing, and I know I had a couple of moments to talk to you about it, Robin, but one of the other ways that we are prospectively looking at advertising or promoting MPA specifically, since we can't do it under Google, through the preschool program, and I know we talked about it because it's tuition based, that does allow us to provide a Google review in that aspect. So if we could potentially work that into the mix when the survey does come, so that gets sent out to preschool parents so they could potentially leave a Google review, because under those parameters for preschool, since it's paid, it does allow them to review our school. And that was something that Adam and I both looked at in terms of promoting our school in a positive light.
Yeah, I think the limitation with the survey right now is just that it only allows you to go, one direction. It only allows you to launch in one direction, but there could be something, and I can talk to Adam about that, where we integrate, if you're preschool, rate the preschool, and then it takes you to I'm sure we can work the logic out there. So, you say I'm on Google Maps right now. If I type in Montessori Peaks Preschool.
So, like, for example, if you type in preschools, Littleton, Colorado, it will show you reviews of all of the preschools that are in the area, and there will be a Google review associated with that. So potentially, when someone is looking at coming into our school as a preschooler, or as a future K through, middle school, they already visually see that the school is overperforming school through a Google review that's been given by a preschool parent. So I saw that as significant value that we could kind of start getting after at an early age. And it still shows MPA as a school, even though it's being reviewed as a preschool item, if that makes sense.
Okay, let me talk to Adam about that. Just looking at Google Maps, Montessori shows, but I see what you mean. There's a ton of kindergartners and preschools around us that are rated. So I think what Adam's got to do first is get it on the map so it can be reviewed. And then, so I don't want to take up more time because I know we had 2 minutes, but that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And I'll make sure I work with Adam on follow up on that. So.
And Justin, I added it to our agenda, the marketing agenda.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you, Frank.
Cool. All right. Thanks, gang. All right. Up next, SAC.
So Tom, are you doing this one?
I'll let you go ahead.
Are you sure? Because it's usually the board. I can.
I was looking for the slide deck, and I can't seem to find it here.
Okay, I can go ahead. It was a light, and jump in when you want to, Tom. It was definitely this time of year is a lighter SAC meeting because there's no new data. So the beginning of the year is a big one because we have lots of data review. So we provided an update on the UIP and talked about some of the strategies we've already implemented towards the goals. And so remember, the UIP is the Unified Improvement Plan that every school has. It's anyway, we just did a brief overview of that. One of our main focuses was safety again, and we talked about the fire drills that are up to date, but then also the lockdown drill. We went into a little more specific explanation about the lockdown drill and provided a list of steps of this is how it looks on the day we have the drill, and this is when the safety and security team shows up, and we went through all those details. And in the end, though, the main point is kind of what we shared with you is the feedback we received, because that's the big deal. And so just reviewed that it was all positive feedback except for those 2 storage room doors. And then after that, we took a look at the current parent survey because we want to be ready and not wait till January to look at this. So the one we sent out last year for 24-25, we reviewed it and made some revisions. And so Aaron Waller right now is working on some updates to that. And our accountability won't meet again until January, but then we'll approve that parent survey in January and be ready to go with that. So we had a new version last year, and so it was, it was the first run of it, and so just there's some couple tweaks we want to make. And then beyond that, we just did a little planning for the second semester meetings. So very, very light meeting in January. The meeting will include the mid-year data analysis from map testing and DIPLS testing. Did I hit it all, Tom?
Nailed it. With
Okay.
1 minute to go.
All right, PTA.
I forgot to email the PTA to get their update. So Robin, I hate to ask you, but do you have any updates that you know of from the PTA?
I don't think I have anything definitive. So Caitlin Coney is staying on as president. There has been some shifting and possibly some staffing on PTA, but she's staying on. And then I cannot remember who's taking over. Michelle Ebendick just stepped down, and so someone else is taking the VP role, and I can't remember who it is. So if anybody here remembers, they had a very brief meeting.
It's Meg Smiley.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, they had a very brief meeting this week because everybody was heading off to the Upper L field trip. So it was a pretty light meeting. But I don't think there's, and right now they're also in the middle of the Dewey's Dash events. So this past Friday, I went to the one for the principal at Kid Strong. So, and I had a comment from a mother that she was impressed I could keep up with the kids. So I'm feeling pretty good about my fitness right now. So, but I almost didn't make it. But I know Caitlin and the PTA are in the middle of, getting through those fundraising events and just making sure they happen. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. All right, and grievance, no grievances brought to my or the committee's attention in the last month. All right, thank you for the committee reports. Next up, we had on the agenda board ownership discussion. So, Christine, is that something you wanted to continue this evening, or is that something we wanted to have philosophically another time?
Well, I'm of two minds on it. My present mind is tired and saying maybe we should close the board meeting. But I do want to make sure, because I know that some of you left kind of with ideas or just like interest at least in these things. So what if we just do like a quick a quick 5-minute check-in on some of the things. We could probably skip branding and identity, because unless you guys had anything else to add for that, because I know Justin and Sarah, you both shared a lot with the marketing. But let's see, we talked about, would that make sense? Would that work for everyone? I'll have to pull up my notes from the last meeting. Let's see, we talked about identity, Sarah, maybe Frank, staff investment pipeline, Frank and Daisy, financials, Ted, Justin, and Elizabeth, which I think we've kind of hit on financials enough for the night, probably. And then board onboarding. So Daisy, Christine, Tom, especially. So I guess Daisy and Tom probably would be the ones to like kind of take that on, and then you could let me know if you have any information. But did anyone have any insights from the last month, I suppose, is kind of my big question after that last discussion. And then we could spend more time on it in December, and then maybe theoretically if we do a strategic session in January or February. Any aha moments? Cool. Okay, so
there you go.
Go ahead. I know we're all like, around 8 at these meetings, like it's my brain starts to like just say like power down. Okay, so I think we'll keep that kind of on the list of things to continue to talk about, and we'll touch base on it more next meeting. And I also want to say thanks to Ted for leading this meeting this evening. Great job.
I didn't do anything, but thanks all. Everybody's prepared. Appreciate it. And I assume it's the same treatment for board goals for 25, 26. Just keep that as part of the broader conversation. Perfect. Okay. In that case, it will be time to vote on the prior meeting minutes, from which I will abstain because I was not there.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody had a chance to review, and for sake of expediency, I will just put forth. I propose to approve the minutes of the board meeting from, oh heck, what was it? From October 15th.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I will just run through the roster real quick. Christine?
Yes.
All right. And obviously I will approve because I made them. They are fabulous. I'm just kidding, everybody. It's 8 o'clock. We got to have a little fun. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Thank you. Frank? I suppose. Do Frank and Sarah get to approve? They were not board members officially sworn in? Anybody have a...
Yeah, if you weren't a sworn in member, you wouldn't vote. So
You can't vote.
Okay. Well, Frank, I'll officially grant you my peace and love and happiness, and thank you for your attention.
Yay.
Wait,
Just
when we're done, let's touch base briefly on that because I'm still confused at what needs to happen on that one.
okay. Sorry, Justin. Did you say yes?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear my name. There you go.
Ah, that's okay. And Tom?
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you all. Motion has passed. I appreciate your involvement and your blessings of the meeting minutes of October 15th.
Ted, can you give us some clarity on what needs to happen? Because at the end of last meeting, we talked about what we had to do to swear in our new members. We have we have the document, right, Daisy? And so what, like, is the document not sufficient? Do you know, Ted?
Oh, so you actually were sworn in by the last meeting. Doesn't have to get filed though.
I don't know. Do you know?
Let me check.
Were they voting members in the last meeting would be the question.
Yeah, I think the way I view it, at least for this, is that if you were
Okay.
at the meeting until the actual, even if it was end of meeting, I think that.
Okay. But that makes sense. And then, okay, but now are they like, is everything squared away with Sarah and Frank? Okay.
Yeah, it should be now because you attended tonight and we're on the roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
After tonight, they've got to vote on them.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that it wouldn't be like May and we're still like, sorry guys.
No. Unfortunately, nothing to vote on tonight. But
they're going to get to read the minutes, with a fine,
you guys now get to read
fine
and
tooth
approve
comb.
the
Yeah.
guaranteed there will be voting items in there.
Your last chance to skim and ignore was that last batch.
Awesome. Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure we got you guys squared away.
Good. Cool. All right. Well, that concludes the agenda. Christine, I have nothing profound. Did you want to do any closing thoughts? Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm like, do I have anything profound? No, but thank you as always, because as always, you're all busy, you have kids, you have, responsibilities and obligations that take, a lot of time outside of this. And, so thank you for like your sacrificial generosity to come to these meetings and be present and engage. And thanks for the time you spend outside of the meeting as well for your roles. It's like, I think an unsung, like an unsung role, and so thank you all for taking it on.
Excellent. In that case, we can adjourn at 8:10 p.m. Thank you all very much.
Good work, everyone.
A wonderful Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. Have a great break.
Thanksgiving.
Well-earned break, Robin.
For the week off, educators. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Take care, everyone.
All right, good evening.
Bye.